So hello and welcome to another compilation of fact-themed content. Before we get into the bulk of the video itself, I need to give a shout out to Transformason, because they noticed the secret message I left in the last compilation. I've hidden another secret message in this compilation. If you spot it, follow the instructions and you can get a shout out in the next one of these that we do. Cheers. I did have a beer that was going to open, but it's like 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I've got more work after this, so pretend I opened a beer. Cheers. Faraway Lucas, what's your favourite James Bond moment? Let's talk about Star Wars The Last Jedi.
This is going to be fun.
Favourite pointless remake. Favourite blue character in fiction. So Faraway Lucas, it's a strange new times for Fact Fiend, because not only are we in my house, I'm editing this one.
Karl, I'm scared. There's not a green screen behind you.
There's not, but it's here in our hearts. Actually, I have the green screen as well. It's like, the old one. I've got. Yes. I can get it. Fucking hell.
Well, there's literally one behind you.
Wait, what is there? Oh yeah, on that. Wait, what? Oh shit! I'm so nervous because my PC's on my floor. I've got that fucking Pokemon tech going on where people are roasting her for leaving a PS4 on the floor. It's like, it's fucking loud. PS4s are loud.
The jet engine taking off. Like, I can't imagine what it's like playing Ragnarok on that thing.
Oh man, I played God of War Ragnarok and I had to turn my TV up and put my PlayStation in a box. I put a box on the floor, put a pillow on top of the box, my PlayStation. It was fucking taking off. Anyway, playing Batman is a lot like walking on the moon, by which I mean about a dozen or so men have done it, but only 3 of them are people that we remember. Which I think is pretty accurate. It took me a long time to write that line.
Just Val Kilmer in my eyes.
Well, who's Batman to you?
Batman to me is like, I mean, to be fair, probably animated Batman. You know, rest in peace. And I think live action is still probably Nolan Batman. Yeah, because he's just for better or worse, the Nolan trilogy defined what superhero movies were going to be going forward for about 10 years. Yeah.
And for me, like, Kevin Conroy is Batman. And something I learned about Kevin Conroy that I was quite surprised about. It's like, I was reading his obituary. It's like he's survived by his husband. I didn't realise Kevin Conroy was gay.
No, I didn't either.
I think a lot of people didn't. And I thought about it and went, hang on a second. We had a openly gay man playing Batman for 30 years and no one ever complained.
Because it's accurate to the character, I guess.
I guarantee you that if tomorrow DC announced that the person playing Batman is going to be an openly gay actor, like, those people they would fucking riot.
If you're telling me that he didn't have like a love triangle going on between the Joker and Nightwing, you can have it off.
Well, here's the thing as well with Kevin Conroy, where I think he penned like a comic book about his experience, and he says in it, the experience of being gay informed my performance of Batman. Of like, that role spoke to me of having to hide who you are in public, because he had to hide being gay for many years. Because he said he lost out on roles when people found out. And if you announce tomorrow that the person playing Batman going forward is an openly gay guy who's going to use that experience to inform his portrayal, there will be a million YouTube videos of men hissing about it on the internet.
I think it would be like the dichotomy of the, angry straight white dude on YouTube yelling, and then the fanfic sites going absolutely ham.
I mean, that's the weird thing for me, is that we had that for 30 years. And I actually thought about this, and I came up with a pretty good explanation in my head for why no one ever complained about it. And it is because he was Batman before men on the internet could tell weirdos to be mad about it.
I guess so, because the internet was still in its formative years when Kevin Conroy was cast as Batman.
And think about that. It's like, whenever you see complaints about media now from those kind of people, they are always just verbatim quoting a YouTuber who informs their entire personality. They never Last Jedi and stuff like that. No one ever has a legitimate criticism for it that they formatted in their own head.
Well, people were angry about She-Hulk the moment that She-Hulk got a trailer. It wasn't out and people were hissing at She-Hulk.
Yeah, and their criticisms are always things they heard other people say because they can't formulate their own opinions about it. And I think that's why Kevin Conroy being gay was never an issue. It's because He was Batman before weird men on the internet could tell you to be annoyed about that fact. And that's super. Anyway, so, although his tenure as the Dark Knight, we kind of went on a spiel. I've got to edit this as well, so if I go off on a spiel, it's my problem now.
It is, yeah, but like, I just want to spend an extra minute giving Kevin Conroy his dues of like, he did unfortunately pass away recently, and it's awful. But like, I just want to say like how fantastic he was as Batman, and how much he gave back to the like fan community, and how willing he was to embrace the fact that he was Batman as well.
That's the thing, yeah, and that's, to me, he is Batman. Like, there will never be another, like, voice of a character who embodied the role as much as him. Like, to the point where, like, I think the only one who comes close, and it's weirdly, it's Mark Hamill as the Joker.
Yeah.
And there's a Fact-Fiend article about the fact that Mark Hamill as the Joker, they go out of their way to keep making him the Joker, to the point where there's, like, a failed, like, Batwoman TV show they made years ago, where they have a Joker cameo, where they don't have Mark Hamill play the Joker, they have a guy wearing a mask or something like that, but then they have Mark Hamill dub that guy over.
Right.
And that's it, because he's so much, like, he's so identified with the character, that's what they had to do. It's like, well, this guy doesn't sound enough like Mark Hamill, so let's get Mark Hamill to voice him over. So what they do is they blur the scene out so you can't see that there's lips don't match what he's saying.
Knock, knock. Who's there? Batgirl.
And so I'm going to try and finish my intro now.
Let's go. 5 minutes in.
While his tenure as Batman hasn't been that long, I think it's safe to say that Robert Pattinson will, one day count among the pantheon of men who've embodied the Dark Knight. Something I say because pretty much everyone in Hollywood knew that Robert Pattinson was going to be Batman, except for Robert Pattinson. So earlier in the video, Lucas, we mentioned weird men on the internet complaining about comic books as if it, that constitutes a personality. Did you see any of the backlash to Robert Pattinson's casting because he was like the Twilight guy?
Yeah, a lot of people were hanging on to the fact that it's like, oh, Cedric Diggory or like Edward from Twilight is like gonna be Batman. What the fuck? And it's like, have you ever watched anything Robert Pattinson actually gave a shit about when he's acting? Like, holy crap.
I was thinking, are you going to mention that? Because that's what I wrote in the article of, I feel that is such a tremendous self-own from people where they will criticize a casting choice based on one movie that they know, as if, and they always say it with such unearned confidence, as if they think everyone else is as stupid as them. It's like, he's the Twilight guy. It's like, wait to admit you don't watch movies, bro.
Yeah.
And Matt Reeves, the director of Batman and the writer, has said like as much in interviews where when he was asked about the backlash to Robert Pattinson's casting, like, yeah, a lot of people were saying he was like the Twilight guy, but I ignored them because I've watched other movies Robert's in and he's fucking fantastic. Like you said, of a movie where he actually cares, he's phenomenal.
He really is.
Not to mention that I think he's a fantastic Batman as well as a fantastic Bruce Wayne, because he's just a painfully weird introvert dork. And that is such a Batman thing, isn't it?
It secretly is, right? Because the life that Bruce Wayne lives, like, he should be this weird introvert that doesn't know how to interact with human beings anymore, rather than like, this suave billionaire persona that Bruce Wayne is often seen as. It's like, he should be that recluse that doesn't have any interaction other than Alfred.
Yeah, and the closest we got to that is like the Nolan trilogy, isn't it? Where, like, they talk about Bruce Wayne like he's a fucking vampire. It's like, no one's seen Bruce Wayne in years, and you see he's like hobbling around his mansion. It's like, fuck off, get out of my house.
Even before you became a recluse, you never came to these things.
Proceeds go to the big fat spread.
Yeah, because like in Dark Knight Rises, they embrace that a bit more of like him just being this weirdo recluse, but obviously in, Batman Begins, for example, when is it Batman Begins where he just walks in and buys the restaurant?
I do think that is a fucking baller move, though. When I like both portrayals. I like Playboy Bruce, and I like weird, brooding loner Bruce. Like, both things can be true simultaneously. And, I like, the animated Batman where he's like, brooding Batman most of the time, but then you have, like, Batman of the Future. Where he's like, you have both there. You have Terry McGinnis, who's a more upbeat, like, charming, suave character. And then you have, like, billionaire, but like, fuck, in his bat cave with his coffee on the microphone.
And, fair play as well to the Frank Miller, like, Dark Knight Returns Batman of, like, just this old man that's fucking had enough. And it's like, yeah, there's so many ways to portray Batman and Bruce Wayne, but yeah, I did really enjoy Pattinson's take of just like, well, course he doesn't know how to talk to anyone. He just stares at people.
That's like the one bit of his Twilight career that I think he used in Batman, of just like creepily staring at people. And I will say, because I've got to address it, because every time I mention Batman of the Future, I call it Batman Beyond, because that's what it was called over here. And speaking of, like, weird men correcting people, every time I mention that, you get Americans coming in as if they're the only people, like, as if America's the only place that exists. Like, it's called Batman of the Future. It's like, well, it's called Batman Beyond everywhere fucking else.
I've had a proper Mandela effect where I thought it was Batman of the Future over here, but I remembered it as Batman Beyond because that was what America's had.
I don't know which one's true, but every time we use the one that's not...
quickly, because I need to know which one's true now, because I'm just like, my brain is being blown a little bit.
So we had that experience when I talked about the movie Welcome to the Jungle, and every other comment on that video is some smarmy American go, it's not called that, it's called The Rundown. It's like, yeah, in America. America's not the only place that exists.
So yeah, Batman Beyond in America, but Batman of the Future outside the United States.
I knew it was one other, and I know that every time I use the wrong one, Americans get annoyed because they can't fathom that there's, like, media that exists outside of the bubble which they, consume it in.
Admittedly, they win on that one because, like, Batman Beyond does sound way fucking better.
And that's how you ended up with, like, people criticising Pattinson's casting, and then Matt Reeves, the director, being like, well, why would I give a shit? I've seen the movies he's actually good in, and they're phenomenal. So you have to say, like, as well, how have comic fans not learned that they also did this with Heath Ledger?
Yeah.
Like, they also criticised Heath Ledger, was like, who is the Brokeback Mountain guy? It's like, yeah, but he's also been in a bunch of other movies in which he's fucking phenomenal.
Well, he's really fucking good in Brokeback Mountain, and I guess that's just
the thing, he's amazing in that.
Maybe that's just, obviously a more homophobic attitude coming into play rather than actual criticism. But, like, what a lot of people would be like, oh, he's the guy in, like, that silly comedy night film, or, like, in a bunch of rom-coms, and then he performs like he did, with the Joker, and it's like, oh, okay, let's shut up now.
What, you mean he's an actor who had range?
Silly, that, isn't it?
It's almost like you'd want someone like that to play a character as chaotic as the Joker. Same thing with, like, Robert Pattinson. Like, oh, he's a weirdo. It's like, yeah, so's Batman. But do you happen to know the film specifically that Matt Reeves saw that inspired him to cast Robert Pattinson as Batman?
My film would be The Lighthouse.
Yeah, that's probably the most famous, like, arty film he's been in. Because that's the thing, Robert Pattinson's career has been, like, indie banger after indie banger. And that's what people know him as. Like, he's like that weirdo, and he's very selective of the projects that he picks. He's got fuck you money now. He doesn't have to be in movies that he doesn't want to be in because he's got Twilight money.
Yeah.
And there was The Lighthouse, which is a good movie, but the one that Matt Reeves saw him is one called Good Times.
I was like, wow, he's such an interesting actor. And I saw him in this movie called Good Time by the Safdie brothers when I was writing, and something about his performance in that movie made me think, oh, this is the guy. I have to write this for him.
And that movie is one in which he plays, I think it's like, he's a brother and he's like a criminal. And in that, Matt Reeves says he has this, like, really understated intensity throughout the entire thing. And there's just this ferocity bubbling under the surface that's just so ever present in his performance. And he saw that and went, that's Batman. Also, as well, he's like, just for the look of Batman, he says that, he has a very pronounced jaw.
If there's someone that you can, like, identify from jawline alone, I know that they said they didn't want to cover his jawline with the cowl because it's so iconic, like, from Pattinson. But, like, I'd identify Bruce Wayne across the fucking room as Batman with that jawline.
With that jaw, yeah. And it's one of those little things where you have to take that into consideration of, like, just, you have to have a strong jaw. It's like James Marsden. He has a really strong jawline, and it's like, that's how he got cast as, like, Cyclops, because basically what they did is they, supposedly behind the scenes, had headshots of actors and just covered up their face. Because he can't emote with his eyes, because his eyes are going to be covered in 99% of the film. So he needs someone who has a very strong, emotive, like, bottom half of the face. Same thing with, like, Peter Weller on RoboCop.
Right, yeah.
Where they said we had to put, we had to get an actor who had, like, a strong, defined jawline, because that's all you're going to fucking see. And they cast him, like, his lips as well. They said, like, Peter Weller has, like, very full, luscious, kissable lips.
He does.
Much in the same way Batman does. Like, do you know when you're playing, like, Arkham Knight, and it's like, Batman, why are your lips so fucking gorgeous?
Yeah. It's like they're the only thing you get to see.
Exactly, yeah. And that's one of the other ways he got cast. And as I mentioned in the intro, everyone knew that Robert Pattinson was going to be Batman except Robert Pattinson, because he didn't realise that Matt Reeves, 1, wanted him to play Batman, and 2, was his only choice to play the role. And it's reported in a few places where, like, you know, those fact websites that don't do their research, those hissing comic book men, that Robert Pattinson didn't want to be in Batman. He's like, he's tired of doing big budget movies. Like, he was actually secretly super on board, and according to him, he was Googling the casting decisions. In his free time. Yeah, he was like secretly looking up, and he was asking his agent to keep track of it because he wanted to be Batman, but he didn't think he'd ever get cast because of his association with Twilight.
And when I saw on his IMDb that there was this kind of rumored Batman involvement. And it was the last thing I said in the meeting. I'm like, what's going on with the Batman? And he was just a little flicker of recognition, and I kind of thought,
Can't imagine any actor sitting there going, I don't want to be Batman.
Yeah, imagine like an actor being like, I don't want to be Batman anymore, and then he's got Ben Affleck with his Dunkin' Donuts. Like,
but he did really want to be Batman at the start of the process.
He just didn't want to be Batman in that universe. And I have got like a running fan theory that I refuse to not accept, and it is, that picture during the pandemic of just Ben Affleck smoking a cigarette outside his house, like, fuck's sake. In my head, that's the day he got told he had to do reshoots in Zack Snyder's Justice League. And I refuse to believe
he lost that absolute just muscular... he got really built for that Batman.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's, in my head, that is the day that he got told he had to do it. It's like, for fuck's sake. You can see it. And that's like, if you watch like the scenes he recorded extra, like the one where he literally crawls out of bed. It's so good. But I said that everyone knew that Robert Pattinson was going to be Batman, and when Matt Reeves went in to talk to like Warner Bros. And they said, "Who's your casting?" Like, Robert Pattinson. They're like, "Is there anyone else?" Robert Pattinson. And they suggested a few other people. Like, I want Robert Pattinson. I want Robert. Like, Robert's probably not going to do it. He's only doing indie movies now. I want Robert.
And like, fair play to Robert Pattinson as well. Like, I think he did physically fit the role by the time the movie came out. Like, I don't think he's definitely a more svelte Batman than, for example, Ben Affleck.
He's also a very bulletproof Batman as well. He's the most bulletproof Batman I've ever seen.
But he still looked like an intimidating character, and he does need to learn to dodge.
Well, that's the thing. I think it's the intimidation factor of that Batman is through the fucking roof. Of like, we've talked before. Again, it shows, I think, that you can have both. Like, we talked, like, our favourite scene, I think, in the Nolan trilogy. We both talked about it before. Is the shipping yard.
The shipping containers, yeah.
Which just, that's what fighting Batman would be like. Of like, just you hear a noise, your mate's gone.
You never see him. All the lights are out, and then there's just screaming.
Yeah, and you go over and someone just knocked the fuck out. And you see a shape, and that's it. But also, I think, the flip side of that coin is Robert Pattinson's approach of just, I'm going to walk directly through gunfire like Darth fucking Vader.
Like, just
the same effect.
The first scene that you see him play Batman in, when he just walks up to this gang and, like, just stares them all down. Is like, what the fuck are you all going to do?
Yeah, and here's a fun fact about that scene. Do you know the bit where Robert Pattinson, Batman, just like, he delivers those last 2 punches to the guy who's already knocked the fuck out?
Yeah.
That was Robert Pattinson's idea. And his explanation is so fucking terrifying. And it's one of those things where it makes you realize he fucking knew. He knows what this character's about, where he said, when they filmed that scene, he said, what I should do is I should throw a few extra punches on the guy before I say, I'm vengeance. And like that. Why? He went, because my Batman wants that guy, he wants that to be the last thing he hears as he slips out of consciousness, so it'll haunt him for the rest of his life. And it's like, that is such a Batman thing to do. And it's like, the end result of, like, the ninja stealth scene and beat the guy the fuck down in front of his mates, the end result's the same. People are fucking terrified of Batman, but they achieved it in a different way.
Yeah, and I do absolutely love that scene of just, like, the moment where you hear Batman walking and just the stomps coming down and, like, the echoes around and they don't know where he's coming from. And he just walks out of the shadows. It's like, the fuck are you gonna do?
It's like as well, like the Batmobile of that noise is like one of like just the
growl.
Like, it's like the only film I can remember in like recent memory that had like a build up like that. It was like Godzilla. Do you know like the one. That was like that. When I saw it, like you just hear this, and like, what the fuck is that? And it's the Batmobile. It's just a jet engine strapped to a muscle car. That's bulletproof.
And it design-wise, it's one of my least favourite Batmobiles because it is just a muscle car. However, you know, it does fit in that universe, and I love the noise that it makes, like the absolute growl that it's got.
And they said like they wanted the car to be a character, and I hate the Tumbler. I hate how he just uses repurposed military. One, because it looks stupid, and two, because how the fuck did no one know that it's Wayne Tech building it when it was a classified government product? How did no one from the government know that the classified tank design from Wayne Tech was running criminals over in Gotham?
Because they spray painted it black, Karl.
Anyway, as I mentioned, like everyone knew that Robert Pattinson was going to be Batman. I've only mentioned one person so far. So do you know who else knew that Robert Pattinson was going to be Batman? Christian Bale
previous Batman knew who the Batman was going to be, right?
Christian Bale did, oddly enough. Christian Bale, you know, he had heard rumblings and he reached out to Robert to talk to him. He's, you know, to advise him on his castings. He said, "Yeah, they you know, there's a similar thing with Heath Ledger. Don't worry about it." And Robert Pattinson's like, "I don't read the news."
I don't think he touches media at all, but like, I think Robert Pattinson is literally like the recluse, like Bruce Wayne is in that movie.
Yeah, that's
now.
what I think. The cast. As soon as I saw that, that's an inspired casting choice. It's perfect for the role. Just this like, you know, this fuckable, dorky weirdo that doesn't like going outside. Awesome, perfect. But the other person who knew was Christopher Nolan, and this is one of those times where, like, behind the scenes, Matt Reeves was shitting himself, and he was so mad when he heard that Robert Pattinson had been cast in Tenet. Is it Tenet? Tenet. I don't even remember the name of that movie. But that movie that Christopher Nolan made. Matt Reeves was really fucking pissed off. He's like, "Well, Robert doesn't do big movies, and that's a blockbuster. That's Christopher Nolan, and he works on Batman. Why is he going to do my Batman movie when he's just made a huge big blockbuster with the Batman guy?" And he was just thinking, like, he was really annoyed. He was kicking himself. Like, we're going to have to get somebody else. He's not going to do, you know, back-to-back blockbusters. Especially not after work. He's not going to work with me after he's worked with like the Batman, like the guy who defined what Batman is. Like, no, like that's in Christopher Nolan defined what Batman is, and he's like, he was really annoyed, and he's like, well, we're gonna have to ask him. And Robert Pattinson got the audition request, and he was fucking hyped, but he was told, because this is Batman, you're not allowed to tell anyone what you're doing. So he like went up to Christopher Nolan and was, I've got a family emergency. And just Christopher Nolan reportedly looked him dead in the eye when, "You're going to do Batman, aren't you?" because he knew exactly what he was on about, because he had to deal with that level of secrecy too. So the instant he saw him being all cagey with what he was up to, was like, "You're doing Batman, aren't you?" So Christopher Nolan also knew.
I love the idea though that like after he got casted, Christian Bale just like rings him up and it's like, "Look, Robert, when they say put on like 50 pounds, they don't mean a fat. That please don't become fat, man. Just learn from my mistake."
Did you see though all those interviews where they were talking about, we can't find Robert, and it's like, why? It's like, we called him asking him to work out, and his personal trainer's like, "I don't know where he is," because he didn't want to work out. And I love that as well, because that's such a Batman thing to do. It's like no one knows where he is. And there's a funny story like behind the scenes, like when he tried the suit on, the literal first thing Robert Pattinson did is he did a backflip, because he's a really in shape dude. And they asked, "Why are you doing that?" He went, "Just to see if I could."
Fair. Yeah.
He also took a selfie in it as well, and they told him you got to delete that. He's like, "Nope, I'm not fucking like this movie might not get made or I might not get cast, and no one's gonna believe that I wore this suit."
That's 100% like Andrew Garfield in the spider suit vibes.
Yeah. And reportedly as well, they made him wear the, I think it's the Val Kilmer suit, because they still have all that in storage.
Yeah.
Like what they did is rather than, because they had not made the new suit yet, when they brought actors in, they made them wear the old ones they had in storage, and the only one that fit in was the Val Kilmer one.
Read for the movie, you were wearing a bat suit, like one of the real ones from like Val Kilmer, or
you try on every single one.
You did?
See which one, and every single one still has the actor's kind of sweat inside.
Where are these bat suits?
I'm just wondering,
The most iconic.
would he have been cast if he was wearing like the bat nipples one?
Oh god, like the special Mr. Freeze like black and silver bat nips.
Oh man, it's like they do that a lot though. It's like with Superman, when Brandon Routh came in to like audition for Superman, they made him wear the Christopher Reeve suit.
Oh
and
wow.
They said the same thing happened with Henry Cavill, and that's how they got cast, because they said with Henry Cavill specifically, when he wore the Christopher Reeve suit with the big trunks and stuff, people thought they were going to laugh, and when he walked in wearing it and no one laughed, they all went, "That's Superman." That's how he got cast.
I'm going to look really bad in this.
You do not. Look, here we've got a picture of you in Christopher Reeve's suit. You look great.
It looks like, can I swear?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like shit.
I just love the idea that before you're allowed to, you've got to wear the original. That must be so terrifying.
You've got to, like, apparently wear the most embarrassing of all of them.
Like, to literally step into the shoes, like, we're like, of this character. Like, imagine, Christopher Reeves. So it's like the thing with animated Batman. Who the fuck is going to, follow Kevin Conroy?
Yeah.
Like, how nervous are they going to be in that audition?
That's one thing for, like, a voice actor, but I guess that, it does make sense, because these are comic book characters. If they don't fit that perfect looking silhouette of a character, like, that's what the design is, what the comic book character is.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with, the Joker. And it's like, oh man, who's going to have the balls to try and tackle it? And it's only the ego of Jared Leto. I think he's the only actor who would have taken that role, because he's the only the ego enough of, like, I can top that literal award-winning, character-defining performance by doing my own thing, and it's fucking terrible.
You say that. There was also multiple other Jokers, including, like, Cal Kestis was a Joker in Gotham or something. And it's like, there's been a few since Ledger, and they're all, like, unnotable enough to just forget.
Well, I think, like, the Joker in the Telltale Batman series is pretty good, because the twist that they have is that the Joker is a Batman fanboy who becomes a vigilante, and then Batman has to say, don't kill. And Joker's like, but why not?
Oh, it's The Incredibles then.
Yeah. And he's really good in that. Like, the voice actor's pretty good. Like, they nail it.
I think that's Troy Baker in that, isn't it?
It might be. I don't know. Well, do you know what? We'll have to do a double check on that one.
Sean. It's Joker!
Thank you to everyone listening. This is the first fact theme video that I'm going to edit and record. It's the first one I've recorded in this new, more laid-back style. I'm hoping it's we're going to keep fact themes, the way it is, or the way it always has been, just talking fun facts with friends. But the editing style, you're going to notice, is going to be a lot more streamlined, which is my way of saying lazy. Because I'm the one editing now, so, just going to keep it simple, back to basics, funny clips, interesting facts, cool conversations, and also lots of plugs for the shit that I do. So yeah, I'm wearing merch. We do merch. You can go check that out as well. Anything you'd like to plug, Lucas?
Yeah, just, I guess I can plug my Twitch, where you can go and find me. I am a variety streamer over there at twitch.tv/legendofcanto.
And if you do want to see the green screen again, we will be recording some. That's the thing, we're going to be recording these videos when and where we can. So there will be videos with green screens, there'll be videos in my home office. But hopefully, the thing that drew people to this channel in the first place, the content and the conversations, will stay exactly the same. Cheers, everyone. Lucas, what's your favourite James Bond moment?
Probably just when I ran around as Oddjob.
I turned you down just a bit too much. I didn't realise I turned you down that much, and I could just say, I'm trapped in a box.
Well, I was going to say, it's, my favourite James Bond moment was just running around as Oddjob and just slapping people in the penis on GoldenEye.
Can you imagine, writing that obituary? Legendary MI6 agent James Bond was killed in an unfortunate accident where a 4-foot-tall Asian gentleman slapped his knees 400 times. Just, whoa, 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 whoa. That's the thing as well. Did anyone ever get a kill with Oddjob that wasn't just revolved entirely around slapping people's knees? It's the best.
Probably not. No Oddjob. That was always the rule.
Who throws a shoe? Honestly.
It's like no Oddjob because that game, yeah, it was influential, pioneering for the genre of first-person shooters. It does not hold up because you can't look down. It's from that era of first-person shooters, if people forget or never played them, where every time you moved your character forward, your character would automatically look up. Because they didn't anticipate that people would be able to have that much finesse to control both the direction in which they're looking and the way they're moving. So every time you moved, your character would always look stock forward.
And I find it really funny because, like, they recently did, like, a re-release / remaster on, depending on which console. It's like, do you want to play the Xbox version that's like running at 4K with a better frame rate and you've got controls that work, or do you want to play the N64 version which has online play, which the Xbox doesn't? It's like, oh no.
Anyway, in the wild, crocodiles are considered to be apex predators, an impossibly bitching title given to animals for which nothing in their natural environment poses a threat to them. And are you familiar with the term apex predators, Lucas? Because it sounds rad, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the term, and I'm pretty sure you could just describe James Bond as an apex predator as well.
James Bond is an apex predator, yes, and other animals considered to be apex predators include things like sharks, lions, tigers. To an extent, things like hippos are technically considered to be apex predators because even though they don't hunt anything, nothing hunts them.
Yeah, you don't want to fuck with hippos.
Yes, and that's like the famous thing people know, isn't it, about Africa, of like, what's the most dangerous animal in the savannah? It's not the lion, it's not the wild dog, it's not the crocodile, it's not any of the creepy crawlies that can, like, bite you and inject you with deadly venom. It is the hippo.
Oh, no! A hungry hippo!
And since we're speaking about crocodiles today, I think the best example of how unfuckwithable hippos are is the fact that crocodiles will not attack hippos, and in fact, will freeze in place when a hippo walks upon them. And there are videos out there of hippos walking up to crocodiles and licking them. Like big like green lollipops, because the crocodiles will get salt on their scales, which the hippos like to lick. And because crocodiles are shit scared of hippos, they will just lie there and let that happen.
Like, that's how scary hippos are, just the crocs won't do a thing.
The baby hippo immediately starts gnawing on the spines of the croc's back. Now, this has got to be annoying, but, well, what are they going to do?
Anyway, speaking of crocodiles being apex predators, let's now talk about the time a guy kicked 5 of them in the face wearing shoes made from their own kin. So Lucas, the genesis for this particular tale comes from the cocaine-laced haze that is the 1970s, and specifically the production of the Bond film Live and Let Die. You know, the one with Papa Shango in it? Do you know Papa Shango?
Do not remember Papa Shango.
Hi, so Karl here, and the character I'm describing in this moment is actually Baron Samedi. I hope that pronunciation is correct, I did look it up. But yeah, Papa Shango is a wrestler from the 90s who blatantly stole the gimmick, and I'm conflating the two, for which I apologise, but I thought I'd put this little voice line in instead of a note for the people who are going to go down to the comments and correct me. You know, yeah. Are you on the original article now?
Yeah, I'm on the article.
Just scroll down, and I'm going to wait for your reaction. I'm just like, ooh, that's the 1970s, all right.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh. It's like, fair play, that actor got a job, but it's like, oh, that's not great.
So
when you go back and watch like old wrestling shows, isn't it? And it's like they're billing like Samoan people as Japanese, and it's like, oh, come on.
And like that just looks to me like a screenshot of Resident Evil 5 with how bad it looks.
Oh yeah, that's the thing as well. Like with RE4 remake coming out, there is now the conversation of, if they remake Resident Evil 5, are they going to take out like all the racist stuff? And my opinion on that is no, because they've not ever formally apologised for putting it in.
Mm-hmm.
And before anyone tries to argue that it's not racist, that game features literal mud hut living, spear throwing, whooping Africans.
Help me! How you want?
Miss me with that.
I mean, honestly, all you need is like a single screenshot of the the entire like village tribe section. And it's like, oh no.
Yeah, it's like every time on occasion I do play like Resident Evil 5 on stream, you can check out the links below. And I'll put that level on and I'll just sit still for like 10 seconds, look at the screen and go, they thought this was okay.
Mm-hmm.
And because they never formally apologise for it, I think they shouldn't be able to take it out. They need to put more in.
I don't think they should put more in because I think that's encouraging them. But I think
no, they need to put more in, and then they need to stand by it. And then every time they talk about the artistic vision for the game, they need to have that screenshot behind them.
Never forget that they had to like add one singular white NPC character to the start of the game because, well, not NPC, but like, zombie-esque character model, because just every single person in Africa was black, and it's like, that's no, okay.
They never forget that trailer, which is just like white man with a gun gunning down African villagers, and they had no idea that look. They had no idea how bad the optics for that were.
That's exactly what I mean. Yeah, it's just like that is a bad look.
Which more than anything is just like a great example of why you should have like diversity in hiring practices, so you don't shoot yourself in the dick like that.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't publicly be slamming your dick in a car door that often if you had like one black person on staff who could go, maybe don't put that in. So maybe if you're gonna put like you're gonna set this game in Africa, don't put all of the African enemies living in mud huts wearing grass skirts. And if you're gonna do that, don't make them whoop and wear tribal masks.
Yeah, it's so many levels of bad.
Oh yeah, like that's not even talking about the fact that like when they first announced Sheva, she had dark skin, and then they lightened her skin in later reveals. Don't forget that, Lucas.
Oh, I forgot about that.
You forgot that they made Sheva have lighter skin.
And if anyone doesn't know, for context, that's one of the 2 playable hero characters.
I think for that one as well, you just need to look at her next to Josh Stone, and they're best friends. Who grew up in the same place, and I'm from the same region. It's like, oh yeah. One's a playable character, one's just in cutscenes for 5. And that reminds me as well, something else I happened to me, like, so another game I play a lot is Revengeance, Metal Gear Solid Rising. And I realised that like at one point in the game, that the game's in Mexico, and for Mexican NPCs, they just painted the white NPC slightly darker skinned.
No.
So they're like using like, is that
Did they
digital
just put,
brown
like,
face?
Ponchos and sombreros on too?
Yeah, they just put like it's the same NPC model, because I play that game a lot and I recognise the models. It's just the same model, but they just darken the skin. It's like, man, digital like brown face. Never thought I'd see it.
Guess you better arrest me then.
18-3-104.7, threatening a peace officer. Deadly force is authorized.
I will say as well, that's not me being nasty. Like, that's literally something they put on Raiden as a disguise while he's in Mexico, is just put him in a poncho and a sombrero.
Because it's like, it's the people there who look at him and go, what are you doing? Everyone calls him an idiot for doing that. One of the NPCs that looks at him is a white NPC that they darken the skin of.
Anyway, James Bond.
Anyway, James Bond, Live and Let Die. So, do you remember the film, Lucas, at all? Obviously not, because you don't remember Papa Shango. I can't remember if that's his name, or that's the name people used to describe him.
I got shown a lot of James Bond movies as a kid, but I don't really remember a lot of them.
They all kind of blend into one, don't they? Because you don't remember the specific film, you just remember James Bond drives a car. James Bond meets a hot lady. James Bond sexually harasses said hot lady. James Bond shoots some brown people.
No, don't forget about all the bad bits. Just remember, like, oh well, I really like Roger Moore. It's like,
Felix, how are you? Dink, meet Felix Leiter.
Hello.
Felix, say hello to Dink.
Hi, Dink.
Dink, say goodbye to Felix. Man talk.
You know what, Lucas? What's like your favourite foreign region that James Bond has visited? Because I love that James Bond film where he visits Japan, and they have like an extended sequence of like all the Japanese people going, oh, "You're so hairy. Why are you hairy?" And you have like the literal geisha girls going, "Ooh, he's so handsome," and it's like, oh no, like I feel so bad for the actors in that scene. Like, you got paid, but fucking hell.
And number 2?
Rule number 2, in Japan, men always come first, women come second.
I might just retire to here.
Yeah, I don't even know, because, like, the ones that really stick out in my mind as, like, memorable places that he went, for me, the age that I am, are the Pierce Brosnan ones, where he went to a lot of, like, different Asian countries. And I don't remember any of it being great.
Oh man, I just like the James Bond film where James Bond beats up a karate master, played by an actual person who's good at martial arts, but then it's like Roger Moore or Sean Connery or whatever doing the fight scene, and then clearly they have no experience doing martial arts. So do you know that joke in Austin Powers, like, judo chop? That joke, people maybe don't know, comes from James Bond movies having such shit fight scenes where you would have, like, master martial artists, like, playing, like, nameless jobber villain number 3, do, like, a cool pose, and then James Bond just goes, yeah, and that's it.
It's weird looking at Austin Powers and realizing how much of it isn't really that far off James Bond.
No, it's like, do you know when they come in and it's like the 2 Japanese characters, Fook me and Fook you? And, like, remember, the earliest James Bond movie had pussy galore in it.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Actually, those movies, like, they're, like, not even, like, parodies, per se. It's just, they've got the parody thing, they put, like, 1. It's 1.
I mean, it depends, because obviously you've got, like, Fat Bastard, for example.
Is that really any worse than, like, Jaws? Who's the guy who's, like, 8 foot tall with metal teeth? Is that really, like, that's the thing, imagine if Fat Bastard was in, like, James Bond and...
So they lean into it heavier with Austin Powers, but yeah, it's not much better.
Like, you could put Jaws into an Austin Powers movie and it'd fit.
Yeah.
Anyway, James Bond. So, in Live and Let Die, there is a scene which takes place in a crocodile farm. But that scene was actually the result of the producers driving around the shooting location of Jamaica and seeing an actual crocodile farm, which had the following sign outside of it. So I'm going to put the picture behind me, but Luke, if you want to scroll down and look at the sign and describe it to the folks at home and maybe just listening along and not watching.
I presume this is the next photo, which is a trespassers will be eaten sign that's on, like, a wooden fence with some, like, what look like wooden tribal shields on the front of them.
Yeah, so that was at the front of a crocodile farm owned by, and I'll get the guy's name now, if you want to get this guy's name right, Ross Kananga. And the producers, like, knocked on the gate and asked, like, what's going on here? It's like, oh, it's a crocodile farm. It's like, how accurate is that science? Oh, it's pretty accurate. People keep breaking in and keep getting attacked by crocodiles. They should probably start doing that. Like, is this your crocodile farm? It's like, well, it is now. So what do you mean it is now? It's like, well, it used to be my dad's, but he died of crocodile wounds a few years ago. So yeah, it's my crocodile farm. And they're like, can we shoot something here? And he's like, sure, what do you want to shoot? And that was the question that I had producers pondering, because they knew they had to shoot something in this crocodile farm because it was, like, too good a location to pass up, but they didn't know what to do with it.
So they hadn't planned to utilise this in any way. They'd just gone past a crocodile farm and went, that'd be fun.
Yeah, well, that's like an underappreciated and in some cases unknown aspect of filmmaking, which is location scouting. Of just driving around an area looking for cool places to shoot. Like, the John Wick movies are probably a really good example of this, where most of those later movies, like, part of their charm, appeal, and draw is that they have Keanu Reeves just walking around in cool locations. Like, location scouts have to find those.
So where's your man?
Oh, there he is.
That's a thing that happens with a lot of other pieces of media as well, that often goes, like, underlooked and in some cases underappreciated. Like, do you remember a few years ago, was it like Glenn Schofield from, like, Dead Space or something, was getting shit on Twitter for travelling to locations for location scouting? Like, oh, he just goes on holiday and he expects to get paid. He's like, no, I'm doing location scouting for Call of Duty game.
Because they were talking about like how they went to this place to get access to like special weapons that they could use for both like location scouting, and it was like going and recording themselves like firing off a bunch of weapons that they could get in this location. And then well, you just went on holiday then, didn't you? It's like, no, I was doing a job, like admittedly something that sounds like it might be a cool job, but it's still a job.
And anyone who's even dipped their toes into the world of business or just has a job knows what that stuff is. And it's always fascinating to me. We have a friend who works in this industry, and they are very and it's fascinating to me because we have a friend who works in a similar industry, and they once very bluntly put it of, I love this job but also hate it because it's one of the few jobs where you are forced to listen to fucking morons who don't know what they're talking about. And he was specifically referring to things like Twitter, where you have people on there insisting that they know more about your job than you do because a YouTuber told them something. And I say that as a YouTuber telling people things.
So Karl, tell me about the time somebody kicked a crocodile with a crocodile.
Well, what they eventually decided to do with the crocodiles was largely informed by conversations they had with Kananga, where they asked him, like, so what does a crocodile farm do? Like, well, mostly people come in and look at the crocodiles, but we also have, like, shows. And he goes, yeah, you know, I perform with the crocodiles. Like, are the crocodiles trained? Like, no, they're crocodiles, but I'm all right at dealing with the crocodiles. No one else would probably do it, but I will, because I'm a madman.
I mean, you say that, but he's also the person who just said his dad died from crocodile wounds.
Yeah, but you know what? He was shit, wasn't he? It's like, get good. Like, do you know what that is, Lucas? Skill issue. Crocodile-related skill issue. But eventually, the producers, after a conversation with Kananga, decided that the stunt they would do is have James Bond run across the backs of crocodiles like angry leathery logs.
As like a bridge, an angry bridge.
And that's something that's literally in cartoons, isn't it? Like running along the backs of crocodiles or running along what you think is a log and it turns out to be a crocodile. So let's do it for real. But when they asked Kananga if this was possible, it would be possible, but only for someone called Ross Kananga.
Kananga was the only man who would try the stunt.
He did something you couldn't have paid me $1 million to do.
It had taken writer Tom Mankiewicz only moments to type the words, but it takes Ross Kananga weeks of preparation to create the stunt.
So, did this guy just do the stunt himself then?
Well, you basically had to, because when producers asked all the stuntmen they had, all of them categorically refused to do it. Very wisely pointing out that they might get eaten by a crocodile. To which Ross Kananga just nodded and went, they might get eaten by a crocodile, yeah. Like, if the crocodile gets them, I might jump in and help them, but it's a crocodile. And it reminds me a little bit of, do you know in Jackass? I don't know which one of the movies, but like where Steve-O tight ropes over the crocodile pit.
Yeah.
Then there's that great bit with like their animal expert, Manny Puig, I think it is, where he says, well, if a gator gets Steve-O, well, it's an alligator pit, I think, yeah, but same basic difference. And they say,
similar animals.
Yeah, if the gator gets him, he should relax, let it take him, and hopefully he'll let him go. And that's like their expert of like, well, what do I do if I get bitten by one of these things? Well, let it take it, and it might let go.
If he falls and he lands near an alligator grabs a hold of him, Steve-O will relax, let the alligator take him, and hope that the alligator will release him.
Hi, I'm Steve-O, and this is Alligator Tightrope.
And that's the plan. Of just, it might let go and get bored.
They heard that and went, okay, let's strap some meat to him and put him on a tightrope.
And I still love that clip in Jackass, though, where it's just like, you see him backing up, but you see the crocodiles go, oh, it goes so smooth. They move so smoothly through the water, I love it.
I remember there was an episode of Mythbusters where they tested, should you run away from a crocodile in a zigzag? And they were like, no, that's a stupid idea. Just fucking run from the crocodile.
Belt it, yeah, because crocodiles, contrary to what their appearance may suggest, they look quite lazy, for lack of a better term, quite slow, quite immobile. quite lackadaisical, but they are capable of quite astonishing bursts of speed, faster than most humans, in fact. But they can only do that over a short period of time and largely are ambush predators. So they will, when desperate, chase someone to hunt them, but mostly they'll chase to scare people away. Like, I think the quote about crocodiles is like, well, what's the most dangerous time for there to be a crocodile around? It's like when you can't see the crocodile. Like, you can see the crocodile, it's not as scary or dangerous because you can see the crocodile. If you can't see the crocodile, that's when you're in trouble.
So, like, if they're just, like, chilling on the beach next to where you are, they're not going to really ambush you. You can see what's happening, whereas, like, when you just see, like, the two little eyes poking above the water, that's when you should be scared.
Then you can see that in, like, the animal kingdom, can't you? And you'll watch, like, animal, like, documentaries, and you'll see, like, oh, is it a pride of lions? And you'll just see some deer walking past. They know that if they can see the lion, they're probably going to be all right.
True.
It's like, but when you're jumping on the back of a crocodile, that's like, that's logic doesn't really apply. And things got a little bit worse for Kananga, though, because he was pretty sure he could do the stunt, because he'd done it before as part of his show. The only safety thing he requested is that they lightly tie the crocodiles down. So they could still snap, they could still bite, but they had like ropes tied around them quite loosely, and they were anchored with rocks. So the crocodiles were fine. Like, they weren't trapped, they weren't like in any danger, it's just they couldn't really move all that much. And after the stunt was done, he like cut them free and they were free to roam after that. But he did that to keep them in place. But the problem was, though, I think it was Roger Moore had the idea too that, James Bond should be wearing crocodile skin shoes when he does.
It was a rather smart idea when we were doing wardrobe before we started the film. I said, well, why don't I have crocodile shoes?
Do you think this was a good idea, Guy?
I think it's a beautiful idea.
Oh, of course.
Because, like, that's such a great visual, isn't it? Like, you're going to run along the backs of crocodiles wearing crocodile skin shoes. And Kananga was all for it, even though crocodile skin dress shoes didn't have much in the way of traction. And he got dressed up like James Bond, tried to do the stunt, and then fell into the water.
Oh, no.
At which point, he was immediately attacked by crocodiles, which, I shit you not, Lucas, ate his shoes.
It was an insult to their honour, Karl.
So they had to get 5 pairs of these shoes made. You might wonder why 5. That's because Kananga did this stunt 5 times, and every time he failed, he fell into the water, and the crocodiles immediately ate his shoes.
What a mistake. I had the skin of one of their cousins. They were out to get me.
I mean, I guess that's weirdly consistent of them to keep eating the shoes.
Yeah, right, and Kananga was really baffled. Like, the bloody bastards just keep eating my shoes. But he did get the stunt, and it made it into the film. And when you see this clip, remember, this is an actual dude actually stepping on the backs of crocodiles. And now, just for fun, here's a clip of him fucking it up. And remember, he is fine, and he probably deserved it a little bit.
Yeah, and like I imagine the crocodiles were fine, but a bit pissed off at the end of it.
Is that thing, isn't it, of like a crocodile is not going to mind if, like, the weight of a person's on it for a quarter second. Like, it reminds me of I think it's like a video going on like YouTube years ago. It's like a guy playing with his dog. It's like a dog that does backflips or something like that. Do you know that thing you do with a dog, like when it's being like, it's really excited and you're like, you pat it. Really, like, you're not hitting the dog, but you slap it on its sides and you're like, you ruffle its face up because it's getting
just excited. A bit of excited playing with them, yeah.
Yeah, because dogs, when they play, they do that. And there's comments people like, he's abusing that dog. And the dog's wagging its tail and fucking loving it. It's like, no, he's roughhousing with the dog because this is how dogs show affection.
And it's like, you compare that to when you watch like a dog play with another dog, and like, I've got a little sausage dog, and he's a miniature as well. And even like dogs like 3, 4, 5 times the size of him, you can see him getting knocked around playing with them, and he's wagging his tail and he's going back for more. And like, not always, obviously, but when he's enjoying playing, things can get a bit rough and tumbly.
Yeah, and like the crocodiles were fine, but this was a guy who owned what was essentially a sideshow in Jamaica, so we can't say for sure that the crocodiles were treated all that well, which is why the footage of him getting attacked by them is at the very least a little bit cathartic.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Just a little bit, yeah. And that's something that happened a lot in those early James Bond movies. Like, the most famous one is the car flip. Not the one people are thinking about in the modern movies where the car flips over like 800 times, which was a world record and an accident, like a genuine accident where they were going to flip a car, and they put too much pressure in like the air canister and it flipped like 18 times or something stupid. There was another earlier one which that scene was a reference to, where they're driving in this car and it goes over a ramp and does a loop. And they legitimately didn't think that anyone would have the balls to do that for real until they found this dude who's like, no, I can do it. I do it all the time. And like they do that classic, like, you know, old action movie thing of showing the stunt like 4 times, because why would you not? Why would you not show that stunt multiple times? It's fucking rad.
Yeah, if you've genuinely got a clip of somebody doing that, you want to show it off as much as possible.
Yeah, and like, you know, early James Bond movies were like rife with that. So even though, like, you know, they've not aged all that well in some regards, those stunts were people doing crazy ass things for real. And in that sense, I think they do have value. At the very least, just spectacle. And since, in part, we've been talking about clothing today, if you like the t-shirt I'm wearing, you can't get this one, because I've got it, but you can get merch that we make in collaboration with our friends over at Psycho, found at the links below.
Yeah, if you want to buy t-shirts that Karl's actually worn, that's a different website altogether.
John, that happened, I bumped into a guy who recognised me, and said, oh, I love your videos, and I had one of the Forbidden Knowledge Keeper t-shirts on me, and I went, oh, well, would you like this? Like, I'd literally just finished recording, we've gone into the pub to have a drink for afterwards, and I gave it to them. They're like, oh, thanks. And then I realised afterwards, like, that's my only one. I can't. We needed that for promotional purposes, and now that guy has literally the only one in existence because they've not been printed yet.
That was just the prototype, Karl.
Yeah, I thought because I got home thinking I had another one, and I don't. We also have like the t-shirt you're gonna see in the end card, potentially still available for pre-order, depending on when this video goes out. Go check that out too. I can't show you it because I gave it away to a fan.
Well, Karl, turn around and show this one off at least.
Show that one off. Yeah. So far away, Lucas, what's your favourite pointless remake?
Oh, pointless remake. Maybe The Thing in like the worst way possible. Like,
hey, that's not a remake. It's a prequel, and it sucks. Have you ever told this story?
Well, actually, isn't technically John Carpenter's The Thing a remake?
It is. Thing from Another World.
That might be my actual answer.
Thing from Another World, yeah, but like they recycle the basic plot. But Joe, here's the thing I got fooled by. Happened the other day. Right, we did a thing for the side channel, which you can check out below. There'll be an extended version of the conversation on Patreon, but talking about bad movies that I think have value. And I said The Thing. And during that conversation, I talked about how I own a DVD copy of The Thing and a Blu-ray copy of The Thing. However, this version of The Thing is not this version of The Thing. This is The Thing 2011. This is The Thing like 1980, wherever it was released.
The good one, the Kurt Russell one.
Do you know the only way you can tell the difference? It says up here, from the producers of Dawn of the Dead.
Right.
I fell for it hook, line, and sinker.
So you accidentally bought the Blu-ray one thinking it was the John Carpenter version.
And out of stubborn pride, I refused to buy another one. So every year when it starts snowing, I do a double feature of watching this and then this.
A great movie and a terrible movie.
But
both
what makes it so hilarious
hand in hand.
That the conversation is me talking about how, like, I don't think people, ascribe enough importance to media literacy. Being aware of the things that you're consuming and just having, just that base level of knowledge so that you don't get tricked or propagandized to is very important. And I say, but I'm not immune to that because I fucking fell for it. I bought the wrong thing because I didn't look closely enough at the media I was consuming.
But you got 2 great movies out of it, Karl.
I did. Well, to be fair, like I say, the whole point of the discussion is that while I don't like the movie, I do think it has value. And to find out why, you can go watch the video on the Untitled Side channel when it gets released, but there'll be a link to that below.
And I will say that was not intended or scripted. I genuinely did not know you'd had that discussion.
No, that's the thing. You weren't privy to it. You made some suggestions for it, but I just thought, well, what a great, organically introduce this other thing that we do. But yeah, remakes. Red Dawn 2012 is a film mostly known for being stuck in production hell for about 2 years before the company making it literally went bust. It's also notable for using CGI to remove China from the plot. Which is just great. So, Lucas, this is a really, really fun story. But first, we need to set a baseline for everybody of, do you know what Red Dawn is?
So Red Dawn was like a movie in the 70s about like, I think it was the 70s anyway, I wasn't born.
That area.
But like about, was it Russia invading the USA and taking over?
Well, a loose overview of the plot is that the Soviet Union, with assists from Nicaragua and Cuba, invade the continental US intent on stomping its balls, at which point a group of plucky teenagers are all band together to fight off the invading forces using guerrilla warfare tactics, and in the remake, Subway.
Dude. Nobody move! Okay. Sandwich artist, fill this shit with bread.
And the film is hilarious. And I mentioned earlier about, viewing media with a more critical eye. This is one of those films that you 100% should do that with, because it is so overtly it's propaganda. I'm going to put it like, it is so obvious, like, no, America #1, fuck you. These plucky teenagers can fight off the combined forces of 3 rival nations because they're communist. But our teenagers, they're American. Look at them go.
Freedom, Karl. Freedom.
Hilarious scenes in it, such as like a little teenager holding like an M60 going like, Wolverines! It's like, he just gets shot.
Wolverines!
However, Karl, it did lead to one of like the most singularly impressive moments of TV I've ever seen, where there was so there was like the guy that had prepped to live in the sewers.
Yes!
From like the breakfast show.
We did that episode of Wiki Weekends, which, fun fact, is its own channel now. You can check that out below. Look at that. Look at these organic ass plugs we're doing in this episode, where we talk about doomsday preppers, and there's the guy who basically is planning for Red Dawn. And he's like, well, yeah, at some point, a foreign rival nation is going to invade the US, and all of our institutions are going to fall. So this guy's like legitimately thinking that some rival nation is going to invade. I think he singles like Al Qaeda. It's not even a rival nation, just this like loosely associated group of terrorists who don't like America. He's going to invade the United States. Like, this is what he thinks: invade the United States, topple the institutions of power, like neuter all avenues of response, like SEAL Team 6, the Army, the Navy, the Marines, all that good stuff. But then he's going to fight back. And his plan is to hide in the sewers with a bow and arrow, eating barbecue food that he steals from his family's barbecue restaurant.
So this is what a sewer system looks like.
I think this will work pretty good for getting around, don't you?
Yeah.
Salem sewers are part of a larger system that serves several local cities and spans 770 miles. Mike fears he could easily get lost and pop up in the middle of a terrorist force.
Isn't like he planning all this when he's got like a pregnant diabetic wife, and he's like, well, I guess like if we live in the sewers, you just get no medicine. I'm sorry.
He's hiding diabetes medicine in the sewers, and it's like that thing of like, this is the kind of effect that films like that have on people, like that American exceptionalism of like, well, of course I'm going to be able to fight off this like invading force because I've got a gun. I'm American. It's like, no, that's not how it works. And it's like, again, I recommend people go watch the film through that lens. It is hilarious. It's also as well just got some great lines in it, such as Wolverine, which is just so great. I do say that on at least 3 times a day, usually when I'm making a cup of tea. The film is mostly notable for being in development hell for 2 years and starring a pre-fame Chris Hemsworth and a post-fame, what's his name, Lucas?
It is Josh Peck.
Josh Peck, and it is awful. And it's not just awful, it's also an amazing case study on something that has become incredibly prevalent in modern filmmaking today, and that is bending over backwards to lick the shit-covered boot heel of China. So are you at all familiar with the concept of China as a film market and what films and Hollywood in general will do to get its films aired in China?
Well, yeah, China's obviously like a massive market. It's like one of the 2 biggest populations in the world alongside India, and like obviously that means massive amount of money can be spent over there on cinema tickets and stuff like that. So there's a lot of changes that can be made, or maybe adaptations of movies and stuff where maybe they just appeal a little bit more to China so that they can hit that mass appeal over there.
Yeah. And when we say changing things to appeal to a specific market, that's not always necessarily a bad thing. For example, a lot of Disney movies have changes in them that are just done for regional reasons. For example, the film Inside Out has a very famous one where it's when the dad is thinking, in America, he's thinking about American football, whereas the rest of the world it's soccer, or the kid when they're eating the pizza. In Japan, it has bell peppers on it, whereas in the rest of the world it has broccoli on it, I think, because in Japan, broccoli is not seen as a food kids don't like. Bell peppers are.
Oh yeah, it's when they're trying to feed other.
She doesn't
not
want
on, not on pizza, just they're trying to feed awkward food. It changes.
But that wouldn't make sense in some markets. They change that. But on the flip side of the coin, some of those changes can be quite unsettling. Disney again, for example. Disney have edited out gay kisses in a bunch of its movies to appeal or have their movies available for release in markets where they are not friendly towards gay people. And it kind of sucks. Was it Star Wars? Where it's it's got the first on-screen gay kiss in Star Wars in a blink and you'd miss it cutaway that they can easily edit out of foreign releases in markets where they don't like that.
Yeah, I know, less so nowadays because they got quite a lot of positive feedback because in Eternals they refused to remove the gay kiss, right?
But then they'll do it in other markets, and it's companies are not your friends. But
no,
this isn't to say these things are always bad. Sometimes it's done just for the sake of making the product easier to understand for a specific market. You have amusing examples of that, Pokemon, rice balls, Ongiri. What are they in most Western markets? Jelly donut.
You look kind of down, Ash. Huh? Have a donut. That always cheers me up.
Because they thought it was easier for kids to believe that these clearly rice-looking objects were jelly donuts, rather than just being they're a thing called rice balls that you don't eat normally. Is that I was a kid, if someone told me it was a ball of rice, I'd know what it was a ball of rice.
That's the thing, it's a regional difference, isn't it? That's difficult to explain, especially to a younger child. It's fuck it, just change it and make it something that's more easily relatable so we don't have to go through the rigmarole of explaining it. And sometimes that can be done for good reasons, sometimes bad. But the important thing to note is that it happens a lot, and it's a pretty established and well-known part of making movies and indeed media. If you're going to make media for a mass market, you have to be aware of the compromises and concessions you're going to have to make to appeal to certain demographics.
And as well, not just necessarily changes, but just influences of how many movies have a random 20-30 minute segment in China for almost no reason. And it's kind of explained away in the plot. And now that I mention it, that there's a lot of times that will happen, and you might notice it. I think it does it in a Transformers movie, and there was Catch Me If You Can 2. They just randomly end up teleported to China.
如同我承诺过的，我修理好了 paper， 敲打了一会儿，然后我想，为什么要在这儿停下来呢？
And the reasoning for that is because when you are making these changes for most markets, you do it for the people there. Whereas when you're making these changes for movies that you're going to release in China, you're doing it for the government. Because the Chinese government is notoriously censorious and repressive of its people and doesn't allow a lot of outside media in. And I think it's about 10 films per year they would let in from foreign markets around the time they were making Red Dawn, which means that only 10 Western releases could get a release inside of China around the time they were making Red Dawn. If you were one of those 10, you gained access to what was essentially a billion-person market that no other film besides 9 others got access to. That was a pretty sweet, and a lot of movies and studios were willing to make a lot of pretty substantial concessions to gain access to that market, the most hilarious of which being Red Dawn.
And is this talking now about 2012's Red Dawn, I presume?
Yeah. So this is 2012's Red Dawn. So in the original script, they realised we can't make Russia the bad guys again. That's a bit cliche. And then Russia themselves became bad guys 10 years later. So
yeah, I was like, is it?
Time is a flat circle. So, and they looked at who's the political boogeyman right now. And it's it's China, and to a lesser extent, North Korea. Let's make China, with an assist from North Korea, the villains, much in the same way in the original film, with the Soviet Union with an assist from Cuba and Nicaragua. And that also allows to keep the name the same, like Red Dawn. Like the red is like, an obvious allusion to like the red in the Soviet flag. That still makes sense with the Chinese flag, because the Chinese flag is red. And they realized very quickly during production that shit was not going to fly in China, because China does not allow any movies into its markets that portray them as a bad guy, which is why, as you mentioned earlier, a lot of movies will have random scenes set in China that portray China in a good light, because they effectively serve as propaganda for the entire country. For example, you mentioned like Transformers, where they go to China. That was put in so that they could release that movie in China, and those movies do gangbusters numbers in China.
Yeah, and like Shang-Chi recently had one where like they were in Macau and they were like, oh man, Macau's so cool and great.
It's so nice, yeah. Basically an ad, and and the Chinese government can use that as propaganda on the world stage. And it's something in the world of politics known as soft power. And a basic explanation is hard power is things like your military. Soft power is cultural exports. So, for example, for many years it was considered that the monarchy was part of Britain's soft power, because it was a thing that people were aware of, that they generally had positive feelings about, that just generally improved the standing of Britain in the minds of people, that weren't in Britain. Not so much anymore, but that's an example that I learned when I was doing media in college.
Right, yeah.
And in the same vein, movies can be considered soft power, especially movies that portray your country in a positive light. And in the same way, China sees these movies that portray their country in a, let's just say, favourable light, can be used as part of their soft power efforts. And the producer of Red Dawn were forced to make some pretty hilarious changes to that movie, given what the actual plot is.
Oh right, okay.
So
it's pretty hard to edit your way around being like, China are the bad guys and are invading our country. How the hell do they get around that?
Well, the first thing they did is rewrote the entire film to make North Korea the bad guys. Which, okay, sure, North Korea are always threatening to do something or other, but the idea that North Korea could invade the continental US is laughable.
What's going on?
Now, they can't even get missiles into the air without falling into the ocean. Now they're they've got an army capable of invading the US. Okay, we'll look past that. And then as well, the North Korean flag, while it does have red on it, it's not entirely red, so now the title of the film doesn't make sense, but whatever. But one thing I should point out about these changes is that a lot of them were made after the fact, by which I mean most of the film had already been shot.
All I can imagine in my head right now is a scene where, it shoots to Chris Hemsworth being like, we've got to stop China, and then an ADR line comes in where he just says North Korea instead, and it doesn't match his mouth flapping.
Well, it's almost that bad because they just went in and CGI'd out all the Chinese flags and replaced with North Korean ones, so the patches on soldiers' armor and stuff like that. All references to China were excised from the film in its dialogue. In some cases, it's been very lazily edited around. They also just dubbed over the Chinese that were spoken with Korean. And it's one of those things where it's also borderline racist. So it's the actors they cast in some cases were Chinese American, but they dubbed them over with Korean.
It's just make them Korean, no one will notice. It's
and it's the last thing, because that's what they said behind the scenes. When they were having this argument of well, the actors are Chinese American, they're not Korean, who's going to know? That's what they said. That's what they said, because that's the kind of shit Hollywood does all the time. We're just going to dub over these Chinese actors with Korean, but they're not Korean, who's going to give a shit?
Yeah, no one's going to know the difference.
And the fact they're making decisions like that is just really off-putting, but it gets better, Lucas, because they also had to edit over a bunch of propaganda posters that they made for the film that were ostensibly from the Chinese invaders. And do you have the original article in front of you now, Lucas?
I do indeed, yeah.
Scroll down and look at the posters and just go from left to right and read them out to me. Because these are the propaganda posters that the invading Chinese forces in the original version of the film, before it got edited and cut down, would put on walls to convince the populace that they were there for a good reason. What does it say?
Yeah, it has 3 posters here. first one says, we are restoring your country. The next one is repairing your economy.
Yep.
And third is fighting corporate corruption.
Yes. So the villains of their film are like, no, man, all your companies are corrupt. They're just in it for, like, they're all about making a buck over anything else, over human life, over your liberty, your freedoms. As the company making the film is, like, just literally doing that.
Just like they're literally changing a film to bootleg so that they can get a bunch of extra money from a new market.
But that gets even better as well, because, as I mentioned, the plot of Red Dawn is, like, antagonistic force comes in. No, fuck you, we're America. We're not going to bow down to this oppressive invading force. We're not going to go to, we're not going to debase ourselves by listening to you and changing our way of life, the way we do things, because you said so. As you said, they're making decisions behind the scenes to kowtow to the Chinese government. They're literally doing the thing the characters in their film, like, Americans would never do this.
America might not, but Hollywood will, Karl.
That's why it's so funny with Red Dawn. Like, the plot of the film is literally Americans would never bow down to the oppressive government of this, like, invading nation. As the company's making it, like, yeah, maybe we'll do a little bit.
And for them, this is just some place. But for us, this is our home.
Just a tad.
Just a tad, just a little bit is the truth. Like, they are bending over backwards to lick China's shit-covered boot heel. And do you know what? The best part about all this is, Lucas?
Go ahead.
Red Dawn never got a release in China.
Of course it didn't.
They did all this, made all these changes, like, got down, they worked the shaft, they cradled the balls. They went all the way in there. All the way in, and then afterwards China's like, no thanks. They spent, like, I think it was a couple million doing this and got nothing for it.
Oh, the fact that they lost money doing that is just poetic.
It's fucking hilarious. And stuff like this is always difficult to talk about because it is so pervasive throughout, like, all forms of media, to the point where I don't think there's, like, any, like, major bit of media out there that has not done this at least a little bit.
I mean, we've already mentioned a few in passing in this video, and, like, yeah, there's not many, big production companies out there that are willing to turn down the potential money of, like, as we say, a over 1 billion person market.
And the old saying of there's no ethical consumption of capitalism has never rung more true. And it's just, every company out there would sell you out in a second, regardless of who you are, if it, like, made them a buck.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit. Like, companies have no morals. They have no guiding ethos. The only thing they care about is making more money. And very often that results in them making decisions like this. But on the other hand, sometimes it does have a net positive if you look at it in a certain way. And a thing we've talked about in the past is the idea that the desire to make money is going to be a driving force in social change. Do you remember this?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Just kind of the base idea is that, well, we see a lot of different, companies making a push towards, for example, supporting Pride Month and making a push towards that. And for most companies, it's probably because they see supporting Pride, now that it's become a bit more of a movement, like, as more profitable than going against it.
Yeah, and you can look at that in the cynical way that a lot of people tend to do, and for good reason, of the companies that are only co-opting Pride imagery to make money because they want to sell shit with a rainbow flag on it for a markup. And they are doing that. Like, there is no question that they're doing it for completely selfish reasons to make money. But the way that I like to look at it, so I don't, like, go mad and, like, just throw myself out of a window, is that, yes, it's cynical as fuck, but just the existence of, like, that imagery in the world will very slowly, but very noticeably, just nudge public perception towards acceptance. Pride Month used to be a very niche thing. And that's why they'd have the protests and the marches, and why the slogan for so many years was like, we're here, we're queer, get used to it. And now you can't move every June from being bombarded with Pride imagery. And yeah, a lot of it is cynical, but it's there.
And we're not saying that as in, like, oh, we're fed up of seeing it.
It's a bad thing,
no, it's a great thing because it's getting its eyes on, like, more people are getting their eyes on the imagery and then maybe that'll make a push towards it. A lot of people saying, well, oh, the companies that I like and that I support this movement, so therefore maybe like I should either look into it or reevaluate my opinions, or maybe just get a bit of extra perspective on what I might, not be informed about.
Or in the case of most people, it's just going to be, it becomes a fabric of everyday life and reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, and that's my view on it, is like, it just very slowly nudges it just a little bit, and it's going to eventually drive, like, not all social change, but a little bit.
But you know what, Karl? Mm-hmm. This video is going either out, like, in or around Pride Month.
It should be going out around June. That's why I mentioned it, yeah.
So yeah, we can go happily and enjoy our Pride Month, and I hope everybody, is out there and being supportive and, supporting the LGBTQ plus community, and just go and enjoy Pride.
And there are people out there, no doubt, in the comments of this video, or just like sat at home frothing at the idea, like, oh, they're getting angry that gay people are being acknowledged. Like, I hate this. The fact that it is now more profitable to not just acknowledge that gay people exist, but actively co-opt their imagery for profit, as cynical and awful as that is a lot better than what it was 10 years ago, where ignoring it was the more profitable thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the same thing, so you always have it with like diversity quotas and things like that for making movies. And it's like, oh, they're just trying to force it. Like, well, you kind of have to at the start, because like the analogy I always use is like, imagine you're on a road and you've been like, driving with your hand like on the wheel in one direction. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, the right, for the past 500 fucking years. How are you going to get back? Not to the left, to the centre. You're going to have to, like, all the way. You have to do a big old turn, aren't you? Just to start approaching where the centre is, let alone get to that side of the road. And that's what it is. And it's like, and eventually, it's going to be a bit awkward the first couple of times you see it. Like, you have those things like panel shows, having to like parity, like panel. Like in the UK, we had one that's like gender parity on panel shows, and there's pushback from that from the old established comedians. And now no one gives a shit, because now it's become established. After a while, it becomes the norm. But you have to have that awkward, period in the middle where, okay, you have the dinosaurs and the established people who don't like it pushing back, but eventually it's just like, it's now a more open, inclusive. Oh, damn it, we ran out. But we can put that in here. We'll end on the Pride thing.
That's why I was trying to give you like the nudge to just wrap it up with saying like, enjoy Pride. I was like, oh, we're on like 28.
So far away, Lucas. Let's talk about Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
This is gonna be fun.
Oh shit! No, I broke my thing. Oh, it's a twist off anyway. Who cares? The monolithic mega corporation known as Disney is pretty protective of pretty much everything it owns, to the point where actors and actresses working on its movies basically disappear from public life while working on one of its projects, as was the case with Kelly Marie Tran. So far away, Lucas, when I mentioned we were talking about The Last Jedi, you made a noise, and for all the people yelling about the film in the comments right now, without watching the video, why did you make that noise?
Just because, like, I know that we don't just hate on The Last Jedi for, like, all of our lives for basically no reason.
Like, we've not made disliking like the third worst Star Wars movie our entire personality. And we know that there's going to be people who are annoyed at the fact that we're not shitting on this movie.
Although I am, like, I'm very much in contention with the third worst.
Well, I don't even know how to define it. It's like, I think it's a pretty decent Star Wars.
It's one of the, like, 8 bad Star Wars movies, right? It's just, they're all just nebulously bad apart from, like, 3 of them.
Yeah, and I have no problems with The Last Jedi beyond that couple of story beats. And I rewatched it recently when I was writing this article, and one of the things that really struck me is everyone in this film is really good. Like, all the acting is amazing, and specifically Kelly Marie Tran, which we're going to be talking about in a moment. But yeah, it's just a really just solidly acted movie. Everyone's like doing a great job, and it looks really good.
Yeah,
like, there are so many great shots in that movie. I was just watching and I'm like, man, this looks really good.
So I've not watched The Last Jedi or The Rise of Skywalker in like a little while now because, the discourse is just in my head and I want to try and escape it a bit. But Like, I do remember, like, yeah, them actually giving a shit and having good performances in The Last Jedi, and not to say that it's a perfect movie or anything, but it's like Rose's storyline was to do with like her sister dying and stuff, wasn't it? Like, yeah, it was quite a cool storyline.
Yeah, and it's I think as well, like the film is only poor in the sense that they completely abandon all the plot threads in it in the third one, which retroactively made it worse. Like when it on release, it was a perfectly fine, serviceable movie. It actually had some interesting elements, like the idea of Luke Skywalker not being the character people thought he was. And then it's kind of meta that fans reacted not fans, those kind of fans reacted poorly to that, which is like kind of what the movie's saying. Like Luke Skywalker would never act like this. And he goes, how the fuck do you know? You saw like 4 days of his life.
Yeah, and like it's really weird because I was totally up for The Last Jedi breaking those Star Wars traditions down, and like that's actively my favorite part about that movie. And just as you say, like the whiplash that happened with Rise of Skywalker, where it's like, no, forget about everything we told you. Like, not everyone's important. 3 people in the universe are important, and Rey's got to have parents that matter. They're like, oh.
That was like one of the most interesting aspects of it, like the idea of like your parents were nobody, which is like, oh,
that was like the coolest reveal.
Yeah, it's like, oh, they were nobody. Yeah, you're not important, but she actually is. It's like that's one of those classic storytelling things of. Yeah, it doesn't matter where you come from, it matters what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the entire film's about. It's like, the actions of the individual. It doesn't matter about who you are, as long as it's what you do in that moment. And they completely shit all over it in the sequel to, like, placate the weird, like, racists yelling at, like, John Boyega and, like, Kelly Marie Tran on Twitter.
Yeah, it's like they did a good job of flipping our expectations on our heads and then immediately flip them back for the sequel. Like, no, okay, we're sorry.
Which, like I said, retroactively makes all the reveals worse. Like, just one of the, like, just most visual examples is Luke Skywalker. When, like, she hands him the lightsaber and he's like, fuck that. Mm-hmm. He's like, fuck being a Jedi. He's like, the Jedi suck ass. Yep. In the very next film, which is set, like, 4 days later. It's like, and he hands her back the lightsaber. This is the most important thing in the world. Why would you ever get rid of this? It's like, what?
Can't believe I threw that away in the last movie. What was I thinking?
Jedi's weapon deserves more respect.
And it's like, god damn it, just have like a consistent storyline, or like, just all the stuff with like, Rey being a nobody. And it's like, well, I don't mean you're a nobody, I mean that nobody knew who you really were. You're actually Palpatine's. It's like, oh god.
No, Karl, because her parents were nobody, but her grandparents. So for fuck's sake.
It's like, oh, way to shit on the most interesting things that happen in Star Wars since I Am Your Father. Anyway, let's bring it back to Kelly Marie Tran. And are you familiar at all with her career pre-Star Wars?
No. As far as memory serves me, Last Jedi is the only movie that I've seen her appear in.
Well, that's not surprising, Lucas, because she didn't have a career prior to Star Wars.
Oh, okay.
She was a struggling actress who was genuinely considering quitting acting entirely because she just could not get roles. And that's despite the fact she's very fucking good in the roles that she's had, because she was in, of all things, like college humor skits.
Am I not Asian enough to do those things?
You're only an eighth.
Yeah, what is that even?
Certainly your father would be Asian, but your children, 1/16th, that's nothing. That's like half a slice of pizza.
That's not even a snack.
Oh, right, okay.
That's where she got like her big break, and she was so disillusioned with acting. And it's something we mentioned in a video that went out earlier this month, I think, depending on when this gets released, talking about Hey Q Kwan from Everything Everywhere All at Once, where just there were no opportunities for Asian men. And with Kelly Marie Tran, it's like, and she found herself getting passed over for a lot of roles because she's an Asian woman who doesn't have like one of the 3 acceptable body types for a woman by Hollywood standards.
I mean, just in general, like, if Short Round can't find any casting roles, like, you're going to have a rough time.
And she was, as mentioned, on the verge of quitting, so she went for the Star Wars audition. And one of the key things about the Star Wars audition that really might have helped her stand out is the fact she had no idea what Star Wars was.
What?
No, she was familiar with it, but she never watched one of the movies.
Oh, right, okay. Like, I was like, do those people... It's like when someone says, like, I don't know what Mickey Mouse is, and you're like...
So she wasn't too familiar with the movies, but she was a huge nerd. And she went in for her audition wearing a Ravenclaw tie. And she was really nervous about going in for her audition because when all the other actors who were auditioning to play her character, do you remember the name?
Rose?
Yes, Rose Tico. They were all dressed more conservatively, and she was like, do I really belong here? And she went, no, I'm going to go in. I'm going to go in and just act the way I think this character would.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up working out for her because the character of Rose is... oh God, I got text. Oh yeah, leave me alone. Damn it, I was in the middle of making a point. And it ended up working out for her because the character of Rose is a quiet, reserved, bit of an antisocial dork.
Yeah.
Which is what Kelly Marie Tran is. So she ended up perfectly fitting the character as they were written.
It was nice talking to you, Rose. May the force be with you.
You too.
But I can't really imagine that being in this movie has made her want to continue acting much more than prior.
Yeah, and we could talk about that in a moment. But in regards to how she got cast, like I said, she went in for auditions, a massive battery of auditions. And Rian Johnson has gone on record saying the instant he saw her talking to John Boyega, he's like, that's Rose.
Hi, what's your name and what's your name?
Hi, I'm Kelly Tran. I just finished a chemistry read for Star Wars. I feel crazy.
Action.
I like him. I say we bring him along, but what do you think, though?
I don't trust him.
Like, trust? We don't have to trust him. We just have to believe he'll do what he says he'll do. And
Okay, yeah, that's literally the definition of the word trust.
But why would he lie to us?
Money.
I really, 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 really like Kelly. She is like Rose stepped up for me. The character that I had in my head when I was writing, it was like she showed up.
And on a rewatch of that movie, I have to agree, the chemistry between her and John Boyega is really strong.
Yeah, as far as I can remember, they were really good to, see on screen together. And it was just kind of I didn't particularly like the Canto Bite planet, the gambling bit and stuff, but those two carried that storyline quite well.
Yeah, and I'm just going to give props to her for her acting ability as well, because it being her first role, and it's a Star Wars movie, and her first moment on screen is an entire speech,
mm-hmm.
and it's the bit where she's talking to John Boyega about, wait, you're Finn. Wow, a hero. You won't believe how many people had to tase for trying to escape. Then she runs that gamut of emotions where she realizes he's trying to escape. And they have that standoff against each other. And in that moment, she shows 8 different emotions in the space 10 seconds. And she shows them all really well.
Anyway, gotta get back to what I was doing, so.
What were you doing?
Just doing
Checking
some checks.
the escape pods.
No, it's a routine check.
By boarding one. With a packed bag.
Okay, listen.
Yeah, just oh wow, you're a hero that's trying to fucking leave us, what?
And her acting in that moment of her having that realization and the on-the-spot twist she does of hang on, you're running away. No, people died, my sister died for this.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to give props to her performance in the deleted scenes, because The Last Jedi is a film that has so many deleted scenes that should never have been deleted.
Oh, right, okay.
When you watch the deleted scenes from Marvel movies, why don't you just leave it in?
Yeah.
No one's going to go to a Marvel movie and complain it's too long. Same with a Star Wars movie.
I don't know. I did watch Eternals, Karl.
That's fair. The exception to the rule. There's so many great deleted scenes. There's one where it's Joe about to be executed.
Oh yes, yeah.
And you have is it Hooks, Admiral Hooks, and he goes over and he starts giving a shit.
Mm.
And he's like, oh yeah, you're giving a shit. And something Kelly did, she just bit his hand. She just bites him like a rabid dog. Oh. And he's just what the fuck is going on?
But we will always win.
And and Rian Johnson in the commentary is yeah, I love this scene, but we had to cut it for pacing.
Of course, yeah.
And then there's another bit as well where it's the elevator, where they're going up the elevator. You've probably seen this deleted scene. With the stormtrooper that recognises Finn.
Oh, yeah.
Again, a scene they should not have deleted, because it leads into something we can talk about in a moment. But where her nervousness is so palpable, where she's got her hand on the gun. And they're all eyeing each other up, and it's so tense. And I don't know why they cut it out, because their acting in that is really when they're They're all like glancing at, should I just shoot this person? Are we being rumbled? Are we being rumbled? And the guy's like, hey, FN127, you made it. Nice to see one of like the stormtroopers make it.
And it's like, it's really weird that they don't kind of like, obviously for the most part, Finn being a stormtrooper is kind of just like brushed over after a while.
Do you know why that is?
Is it just because like they want to downplay the fact that he's essentially an evil guy to start with?
It's not that. It's that there was going to be a plot thread that was hinted at in The Last Jedi that got completely dropped. And it was going to be that Finn was going to lead a stormtrooper rebellion.
Oh, shit.
Jokes like, and it's one of those things where it's a plot thread that was hinted at in Force Awakens that Rian Johnson picked up on that, what's the guy's name now? J.J. Abrams, that's it. That J.J. Abrams just dropped. And it's where Finn's like, I'm a child soldier.
Yeah.
So you know that bit in like The Force Awakens where like Finn is a stormtrooper and he just like realizes, holy shit, we're the bad guys. And starts panicking.
Obviously, the iconic thing of having like his squad mate's blood all over his face is like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah, he just starts like, he becomes panicking Skywalker and he realizes, oh my god, what am I doing? Rian Johnson watched that part, thought it'd be kind of interesting why don't more stormtroopers do that? Why is Finn the one stormtrooper who's ever realized what the fuck are we doing? And his idea was that Finn would eventually lead a stormtrooper rebellion.
Yeah.
That's why he put in scenes of stormtroopers interacting with Finn and recognizing him and just going about their daily business. And there's another deleted scene that also hinted at that, where it's Phasma, the fight with Phasma, which is 1 second long in the final cut. It was originally a lot longer in the director's cut, and it had a moment where Finn directly calls her out for just bitching out on the Death Star, or the Death Star Mark II, what the fuck, or Mark III, I guess, in canon.
Like, was that the Starkiller base?
Yeah, do you know why she completely sells everybody out?
Well, yeah, because she's got a gun pointed at her, Karl.
Yeah, like Finn calls her out of you talk about being loyal to the cause, but when it was your neck on the line, you immediately bitched out and sold everybody out.
Your neck was threatened. You squealed like a whoop hog. The evidence blew up at the base, but you and I know the truth. When I put a gun to your head, you shut down Starkiller shields.
And all the stormtroopers, with the guns trained on Finn, start looking around. And they slowly start to lower their gun, then Captain Phasma kills them all.
Oh.
And that was supposed to set up the idea of Finn being like, well, I want to free, the stormtroopers aren't evil. They're just under the thumb of an evil guy. I know there's humanity left in them, which is what all those little scenes are meant to show.
Yeah, because in The Force Awakens, they talk about, Hux is saying, talking about, I think they're talking about, the performance of the trainee stormtroopers and stuff, and how, some of them aren't showing that they're, fully committed to the cause and things, and it's
It's a plot thread that they completely abandon within The Force Awakens. Because don't forget, The Force Awakens opens with that great scene, Finn taking his helmet off, and you realise, wow, stormtroopers are people. Mm-hmm. You fast forward to Jakku. Finn is cheering as he blows up child soldier pilot TIE fighters.
Well, even
he's going woo, and cheering as they blow up TIE fighters full of child soldiers.
Even when they find them at the bar, and he starts fighting with the lightsaber, and he's trying to kill his own friends, essentially.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that Rian Johnson didn't like, and he wanted to explore the idea of stormtroopers being people. Because how many shots are there in Star Wars in general of stormtroopers being ordinary guys? In Force Awakens, where they do the thing, the best shot in the entire film.
Kylo Ren bit.
Yeah, Kylo Ren's having his fucking tantrum, and the stormtrooper's nope.
Just let's go back. Come on.
But how weird is that, though, when they have shots like that and then treat them like disposable cannon fodder to be killed for your amusement?
Yeah, and even in that scene that was talking about, Finn gets called out by that stormtrooper and he says traitor to him.
Yeah, because he recognises him.
He's, upset about it.
Yeah, he's disappointed in Finn, and that's one of those plot threads that Rian Johnson picked up on, explored in his own film, and was completely abandoned for the third movie. Speaking of completely abandoned, you have Kelly Marie Tran, and when she was cast as Rose Tico, she basically disappeared off the face of the earth. So you're probably a bit familiar with Disney being very protective and secretive about upcoming projects, but are you aware of how ridiculous it gets sometimes?
I think, like, I heard a lot about, you know, people being flown in for like Endgame stuff and like fake scenes being shot, and like they had like Michael Rooker on set to not spoil Guardians 2 and things, but I haven't heard too much.
Yeah, and they write fake scripts and they release fake promo shots, and they'll edit trailers to put fake shit in them.
Mm-hmm.
But in regards to The Last Jedi, when Kelly Marie Tran was cast, she was flown to London, but she was told, you're not allowed to tell your family where you are. Which sounds a bit suspicious, like, we're going to fly you to a foreign country and you're not allowed to tell anyone where you are. So what she did is she told her family she was in Canada filming an indie film in the wilderness, so wouldn't have access to the internet a lot, to explain why she couldn't talk to them.
Right, okay.
And then when she was filming, she was in a hotel, and she would be driven from her hotel to the recording studio to do her work, but she'd be driven in a car with blacked out windows, and when they didn't have a car with blacked out windows, you have to wear a black cloak over her head.
This is quite weird, considering this is like an actor that's not tied in with the franchise yet.
If people saw her in a car, they wouldn't know she's going to be in Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly.
And they still
because
made her
like
do
she's
that.
not been known to be in Star Wars yet. Like you see, like, you know, John Boyega on the way to a film set. You're like, well, maybe that would have been Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so they made her hide under a cloak. Like they literally just put. Do you know that bit in like the Obi-Wan show with they put Leia under the coat? They should have done that.
Oh god.
I rewatched that like show. I don't know why I did. I was just like looking at it like, is it as bad as I remember? And I forgot they put in a shot of like little baby Leia looking out from under the coat in case you didn't realise she was there.
See, I think it would have been better if they did the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles of like the trench coat with the hat.
Oh, it's just so bad. But yeah, that's what they did to Kelly Marie Tran. And to sell the fact she was in Canada, she emailed her parents pictures of Canada she found on Google. And then when she went back to visit them on a rare day off, she got maple syrup off Amazon and took it back with her.
No.
And yeah, look, I got some maple syrup from Canada.
Yeah, I lied to them and said I was doing an indie movie in Canada. I bought the maple syrup. I went all in.
They believed you, which is incredible.
I'm a good kid, and I never lie until now.
A great liar. Good job.
Of course, because, you know, that's the one thing that Canada has, maple syrup.
Yeah, it sounds like the start of Taken, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's just Disney taking her, and yeah, she basically disappeared off the face of the earth while they were making the film. Then she disappeared even harder when they finished making it, because she realised, this is probably the last time I'm ever going to be able to go out in public without someone recognising me.
Yeah,
so what
true.
she did, yeah, so she went to South Africa and went to an animal reserve that had no internet, no electricity, and no running water.
I mean, until you said, like, the no running water, I'm like, that sounds like a pretty good deal.
And I'm thinking now, I bet she wished she went there after the film came out.
Yeah.
Because, like, fucking hell. Like, it just wasn't good for her, was it? Because, like, as I said, she's great in that role. I watched it, and like, her performance is fan-fucking-tastic. And, like, just her acting is, like, top-notch. Like, she's acting alongside, like, John Boyega and holding her own.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's there. She's holding her own with, like, John Boyega, or, like, no, the best new young actors on the scene.
Who had also been around for, like, 10 years at that point.
Yeah, and, like, you know, John Boyega has, like, you know, been established as, like, a fantastic actor.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, she's, like, holding her own against him, and then she just got a bunch of shit because she's Asian. And have you, like, ever read up on, like, how much she got shat on by Star Wars?
No, I know that, like, there's a lot of just whitewashing the marketing, especially over in China.
Yeah, so that was like John Boyega specifically got that one, wasn't it? Where like John Boyega was removed from the poster and replaced with TIE fighters because he's black, and it's like fucking hell in China. Yeah. With Kelly Marie Tran specifically, she had about 1.5 minutes of screen time in Rise of Skywalker. So yeah, she's a main character in this, like, you know.
Yeah,
Last
she's
Jedi.
like one of the 3 main storyline plots. Like,
yep. So
well,
she
part
has
of one of those 3.
She has 1.5 minutes of screen time. They removed her romance subplot with Finn, even though they have, like, phenomenal chemistry. And they didn't replace it with the only other acceptable ship, which is, like, Finn and Poe.
That's what I was going to say, yeah. Like, I wouldn't have minded if it was just for Finn and Poe.
Yeah, so they removed it from that. And this is the one where I couldn't believe it. I read it and I went, there's no fucking way they did this. Is they put the character of Rose on merchandise, pre-release material and posters, and then removed her.
What?
So she was on posters and merchandise, then they made the active decision to remove the character from those.
Fucking
before selling
hell.
them. It's just, you look at that and you go, why are you placating the absolute worst elements of your fan base?
And I am glad that, like, Disney have started to make a trend towards, like, away from that, sorry. But, you know, you have to just think of the cynical way of, like, they realised that that was what was more profitable.
Yeah. It's like, you know, you go back, like we mentioned Marvel movies, like how many of the, like, Avengers toys and bits of merchandise don't have Black Widow on them? Because of that cynical mindset of like, well, little boys won't buy something with a girl on it. It's like, what about all the little girls that watch your programs?
And, like, Black Widow's movie never got approved until, like, Wonder Woman did well.
And people always talk about these decisions if they're politically motivated. It's like, they're not, because companies don't care. They care about extracting the most profit from their product. And the fact that it's profitable to downplay the parts of an Asian woman. And I don't know if it's better or worse that the company did it to make money. Because obviously I will never experience that kind of discrimination. But I don't know what would feel worse, though, to be told it's not profitable or economically viable to put you on the poster. Or whether it'd hurt more to hit you, we want to placate racists. Like, what would hurt more? That we're placating racists because that's what our politics are. Or we are apolitical as an organisation, but it is more profitable to placate the racists. Like, I don't know what would sting more for me. And maybe, like, you know, if we've got any minority fans in the audience, you can let us know in the comments. Like, you know, you know what, we'll try and, like, pin some of your comments if we can, rather than letting the people who are just screaming about The Last Jedi sucking ass, instead of, like, moving on with their lives and getting a personality.
And, you know, let's just both put down our opinion right here and make it very, very clear.
Yeah, sure.
We wish it was neither.
We wish it was neither.
You know, that it would just be that all of these good actors would be treated nicely and with respect and not shot on because of any reason.
Well, that's what makes it so frustrating, because, like I said, on the rewatch, like, everyone in that film's great. All the acting great, and I will mention, because I know it always gets brought up when it comes to the criticisms of The Last Jedi, have you seen that clip floating around, or the screenshot of Mark Hamill talking about how he disagrees with the direction Rian Johnson took for his character?
I think I've seen, like, snippets, yeah.
And there's a reason you've only seen snippets, Lucas, because I also watched the documentary, so there's any, like, you know, supplementary information about, like, the making of the film to include in this article, and they always cut that quote short, so I'm probably going to butcher it a little bit here, but the paraphrase version I remember is, Mark Hamill says, yeah, I don't agree with the direction that Rian Johnson is taking with Luke Skywalker.
Well, see, again, I mean, and I told Brian this, it's no surprise. I said, I just fundamentally disagree with your concept of this character and how you use him.
And what those kind of fans do is they screenshot that and say, look, even Mark Hamill doesn't like it. And they leave out the very next thing he says, which is, but I don't own Luke Skywalker.
Now, having said that, I'll do everything within my power to realize your vision. Because, you know, it's not my character to decide. It belongs to other people. They just rent it out to me.
Like, it's very telling that those kind of fans leave that part out and then do the exact thing Mark Hamill says he doesn't have the right to do as Luke Skywalker. Of claiming ownership over the character and deciding, like, you know, that they are the be-all and end-all of what the character should be.
It's very convenient that that part's always left out.
But, like, you gets used as a club, like, oh, even Mark Hamill didn't like the direction they took with Luke Skywalker. Yeah, but he didn't agree with it, but he respected it and understood that it is the writer's prerogative to do with the character what they want. Like, he is not the be-all and end-all of what Luke Skywalker should be.
I mean, he doesn't even play the character anymore, Karl, because, like, AI does now.
But yeah, like, he respects, like, you know, the role of the writer to decide the path the character should take. And it's just, that, as I said, it's very convenient they always leave that part out and then do the exact thing Mark Hamill was saying he, as the actor who plays Luke Skywalker, doesn't have the right to do, which is criticize and say, like, that's not what they do, they should do something else. Like, no, I respect what he's writing and I'm no interest to see where it goes. And that's the thing as well. I agree with him. I was interested to see where that story was going to go right up until they just course corrected everything. I was like, fuck's sake.
Oh, God. As I say, Karl, like, just that third movie was just pure whiplash.
It's hard to think as well of, like, another example of that in media history of a film being retroactively ruined by its direct sequel. And the only one I can really think of is like Terminator, which I mentioned in the previous video.
I know the one that you talked about. It's Terminator.
Yeah. But that's the only other example I can think of, and maybe like there's people out there who can think of more. But like, a sequel that directly contradicts and retroactively ruins an earlier film in its well, I guess like horror movies, they do that a lot because like there's so many horror movies where they like they course correct or retcon stuff. But yeah, like a big franchise like.
I think that's so common in horror movies that it's not even worth pointing out because it's just like horror movies wouldn't exist otherwise.
But it's, I think with Star Wars, it's such a massive... The idea that Disney, of all companies, especially when you consider like how much they plan out Marvel stuff. Like they have Marvel movies planned till like 2030, but for some reason they let the writers of each Star Wars movie decide what was happening on a whim.
Yeah, the fact that they didn't even sit down and like get an overarching idea of what like the trilogy stood for or anything, like the messaging behind it, not even like the writing, just like the general themes at very least.
Yeah, let's write the ending and then like, here's what the ending's going to be, now write towards that sort of thing. I put a lot of the blame on J.J. Abrams because if you go back and watch a lot of films in his filmography, something he is awful for is introducing plot elements that are interesting, but then never answering them. Like we talked, like, Force Awakens, where he introduces the idea of, like, stormtroopers being people, being, like, brainwashed child soldiers who have the capability to break that programming and realize what they're doing is wrong. And then he never mentions it ever again.
Yeah, he's very good at, like, build-up and world-building, but not necessarily, like, finishing storylines.
Yes, and then for some reason they let him finish the storyline. Like, he's 1 week. Like, that's like one of his greatest strengths is introducing interesting plot elements. And one of Rian Johnson's greatest strengths, because he gets memed on a lot. Like that guy wrote some of the best episodes of Breaking Bad. I think he wrote Ozymandias.
Oh wow, okay.
And like, I thought I'll look it up. Like, he wrote some of the best episodes of Breaking Bad. He is a fantastic fucking writer. He's great at writing characters, and he's great at picking up those plot threads from like earlier things that were mentioned offhand in early season stuff, and then building upon them to create an interesting narrative and twist.
A lot of Star Wars fans, as you say, like dunk on him a lot, but at this time of recording, two very popular films are like Knives Out and Glass Onion, both made by him, and it's like,
and they're two mystery movies that have incredibly satisfying conclusions with a lot of twists and turns in them. And then, like I said, he wrote some of the best episodes of Breaking Bad. We're never going to get it, but I do like to think sometimes what would have happened if either he got a chance to finish the story as it's written, or they brought in a director who picked up the ball that he left and ran with it, instead of kicking it off the field and getting a new one.
Yeah, like if it was him or anyone else following along some of like the plot lines in the second movie of anyone can be important, anyone can become a Jedi, like just so much of it I think would have led to a more interesting third film.
Yeah, or like the Stormtrooper rebellion aspect, or Kylo Ren trying to lure Rey over to the dark side, and then Rey simultaneously trying to lure him over to the light side, and then the power struggle. Because that's the thing as well, it's set up for the Stormtrooper rebellion is perfectly set up by the end of that first movie. Like, Snoke's dead, there's a power vacuum.
Well, it almost, by the end of that movie, sets up like a neutral ground being set up that isn't Jedi or Sith.
Yeah, you now have like this billion-person strong army of stormtroopers with no strong leadership, which is like I think what he was trying to do. Of that's perfect setup for a stormtrooper rebellion. Because imagine if Finn would be able to go into I don't know, like the big flagship or something, speak over the tannoy of I'm a former stormtrooper. I'm like you, I know what I'm doing. You don't have to fight for this. There's a better future. You can fight for it. But I imagine half the stormtroopers you know what? Yeah, fuck fighting for the Empire. What's the Empire ever fuck? All we do is blow up planets and harass people. Fuck that.
Like, regardless, I think there's so many ideas that were better than just well, she's a Palpatine.
Yeah. It's that thing of, I mentioned it before, of that great moment when I was watching, I think it's the exact moment I was just completely burned out on Star Wars, is a playthrough of KOTOR I watched once where just it gets to a point they're in space and they're looking out the entire universe, and there's like 1 million planets and 1 billion stars. Then the person playing the game just says, and just think, in this entire wide open universe, only 3 people matter.
Our look, among this infinite vast array of stars, 8 people matter.
That's Star Wars, and it's what they did. It's like they're saying like that's you're a nobody. Well, she's a nobody, but she's the most important person in this story. And then they end with like that little kid, like when he force grabs the broom. It's like oh wow, Jedi still exist, but maybe like the idea of like the Jedi shouldn't exist, but people with these powers can forge their own path.
People can still use the Force, but not necessarily be Jedi or Sith. Yeah, like kill the tradition.
Yeah, but maintain the ethos of protecting the galaxy. And it's like instead it's like no, you're a Palpatine. You're not nobody. You're the most important person who's ever lived. You're a direct descendant of the central figure in all 3 parts of what would you even call it? The Nintilogy or something like that.
Yeah,
the non-trilogy.
Yeah,
like
the
you
non-trilogy.
So you're not nobody. You're the most important person who's ever fucking lived. And they didn't even deliver on that when she says, "I am." During I am the Sith and I am the Jedi. If the third film was just course correcting and just like wanking off fans who only want to see the stuff they remember, why did she, when she said that, just the ghost of every Jedi from the previous movies turn up?
Yeah.
All that film was meant to be just wanking off those fans. Why did they not double down?
I mean, I guess they did when they made a show just to get Liam Neeson to come back for 10 seconds.
Man, people are gonna hate this one. And that's the shame, isn't it? There's no nuance online. It's like we've criticised the movie, we've praised the movie, but ultimately we think it's like a 7, 8 out of 10.
But it's more interesting than Rise of Skywalker,
and it's more interesting to talk about because at least the plot threads that are introduced, at least they have interesting conclusions when you theorise about their potential solution. And then people just shit on it because it's like it's got a black person in it or a lady is in charge. It's like, okay, is that the discussion you want? Is that what you want to talk about?
Well, they also wanted to talk about blue milk.
Yeah, and it's like blue milk. Where do you think you fucking got it from? Where do you think milk comes from? I like the idea of Luke being a fucking hobo in space.
He used to be a
really
moisture farmer.
Yeah. I like that. I like how fucking just disgusting and crap. Because the idea of that film is it's deconstructing the image you have in your head of Luke. He's the legendary Jedi Knight who saved the world. And he's just a fucking loser who got lucky. And they highlight that and they talk about it. It's like, I'm going to burn the sacred Jedi text. I don't need a lightsaber. It's like, but no, Lucas, your lights. It's the most important thing.
Oh.
Oh.